All right. Welcome back to Guy Tries to Figure Out How to Do Bleed Crossbows. Take 72. So from the previous video, I have been doing even more testing of different setups. I'm constantly going broke. Please, more gold drop. And there's been, I think, a shift in how I want to scale the damage. Or at least I kind of had an idea of how to do it, right? Because you want to get bleed magnitude. That's the whole point of this build, or at least the archetype. You want to scale your bleed as high as possible. And there's a couple ways that I was actually doing it. So first off, let's go to this guy. Last couple videos, I've been playing around with this, and even back on the Titan character that I was playing, I was using this. I have a love-hate relationship with this thing because while it increases your sheet DPS, which is cool, the thing it does to bleed, at least in this context with this kind of setup that I'm doing, it makes trying to get a really good bleed very inconsistent. Because like with other skills, when you're trying to apply the bleed, you typically have something that's like fast shooting or fast attacking. Like Rake, the spear ability, you can use that really frequently, right? So you rake in, you leap out. Did your bleed get a decent hit? No? Okay, well, I can just go back in and rake. With me trying to use Plasma Blast as a means to deliver this high bleed, the frequency at which I can try to roll a really high hit bleed is really low. So when I was going around to do testing and at least trying to fight bosses as much as I could before this update, and then after this update, the actual range of me getting like a higher hit felt a lot lower because I'm not attacking as fast. So I think this is where it contributes to it feeling like shit. But I think if you have a skill that attacks faster, this makes more sense to use. But because Plasma Blast has this 2 seconds to total attack time modifier on here, it's basically going to make it always feel like shit if you're getting constant low rolls. And in the previous video, I mentioned like I was just gonna rock with a belt and try to figure out what to do with resistances on my amulet. I happened to shift some things around. I sacrificed some armor to at least get some fire res for the moment. But I was able to slot in this amulet. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's something. At the time that I purchased this, I was looking for level 2 projectile skills. I was looking for resistances. I was looking for rarity because I feel like I was just not getting enough currency to help fund testing, or at least just to get like just better items in general. And because I put this on, that led me to be open to using my belt slot again. But instead of using the Rislathus coil belt, I opted to choose a Darkness and Throne belt, specifically one that has this modifier. So it gains bonuses from socketed items as though it was gloves. And on gloves, you can get this rune, which if I go over here, I believe it's a talisman. Wrong one. Holy shit, I'm all over the place. Talisman, magnitude, ailment. Oh no, it was just a normal rune. This guy. So naturally, this rune is 15% magnitude of damaging ailments, which is about like maybe 1.5 skill points on average. So when you socket in 2 of these, naturally, you know, you have to corrupt an item, but with Darkness Enthroned, you just naturally get 2. But it also has that 1 essence modifier that everyone's craving about, just baseline. But it has a roll, so you can either get 50% or 100%. I bought this for, I think 6 annuls. So I think that's, I don't even remember the currency conversion. Maybe a div, maybe a little bit more than a div. And what this does is it makes it so I don't have to worry about the range of the hit as much anymore. So this 1700 number to this 6300 number, I can worry more about this bleeding number that I care about more. So taking it off, 7,200 or 72,000, sorry, then 87,000. So it's a decent chunk. And then on Siege Cascade, Impact I don't care about, Explosion, because they should be pinned on the Impact. I go from 21,000 to 26,000, so it's noticeable. And then if I am channeling, it goes up to 122,000 estimated bleed. And again, this estimated bleed is whether or not I get like a high rolled hit. So I could get low end turbo shit roll, or I could get a super amazing bleed. And that's pretty much it with the gear. These were the 2 things that I just changed for the most part. I just slotted in these charms because I had 2 fire resist ones. Going on to jewels, I changed around some other stuff, primarily with how to better get a higher hit of Plasma Blast, how to pin a target more efficiently. And what I was doing, so first off was with Plasma Blast, I took out the support gem for more damage if you've moved while using the skill. You can use it. It's entirely optional. Oh, great. Of course. My game crashed. Isn't that lovely? Son of a bitch. So with hit and run, I'm using this as a way to scale down the attack time. And that attack time is just actually trying to channel the ability faster, is what this reads, or how this reads. The 2 seconds is always going to be here, but the quicker I can get this fully channeled within that pin duration is my thought process. Although, if I feel like I can get away with it still, I will probably slot in the other gem to get 40% more damage to get a higher hit bleed. So this actually leads me into the testing. So let's open up some videos real quick. Where was this one? So this was me going into my last Ascendancy trial. This is where I was still using my Mirage Archer setup. I was not using this totem at all, Dark Effigy, and I'll get to that in a second. But here's the modifiers that I had. I do have this more damage on here. I think it kind of helps. What am I saying? It's 50% more damage. So I dodge rolled. I was getting the pin, getting the broken armor. I consumed the armor with the Plasma Blast, and then I just have to do that rotation again. Same thing as the previous video where I was going over how you would set up, or how I set this up to do damage. So then this leads me into the actual Ascendancies themselves. So first up, let me go into the Ascendancy Watch How I Do It. So this is the one where you give allies in your presence 25% of your weapon's attack damage. So the idea was that I can pick this up. I can still have the Spirit Reservation, and I could just get extra damage. The problem is it doesn't do fucking anything. So Mirage Archer, I was mostly looking at high velocity rounds and broken armor, but it also did not affect Mirage Archer itself. So no difference. And then going into Artillery Ballista, it also didn't do anything. I tried unequipping my weapon, equipping my weapon. I tried, I don't know, unsocketing the gem, socketing it back in, unsocketing a support gem, unsocketing back in. Literally nothing changed. So unless if I'm misunderstanding how this Ascendancy works, I don't see a difference in damage. Would it be good to pick up if it did work? Maybe, but I feel like to properly get pin buildup quickly on a pinnacle boss, it's probably better to just have more of your artillery totems or your artillery ballistas. And this leads me into the other one. So for Embankment, this is where you place down... I didn't actually add this in the graphic. So when you place a totem, sorry, you get this Embankment aura, which you get different kinds of buffs depending on what type of totem it is. So artillery gives immobilization, so this could just read as pin for this build. Siege Ballista gives 50% increased damage against immobilized enemies. Mortar Cannon, you gain damage as extra fire. Shockwave, AoE, Ancestral War Totem, 40% increased glory. But for this, you would need a constant supply of endurance charges. And then Dark Effigy grants this 40% increased damage over time. So just in general, being able to immobilize or pin a target more quickly, specifically a pinnacle boss, helps, because then I can spend more time about trying to hit the target, apply the bleed, and because they were pinned, that bleed is just automatically aggravated. Siege Ballista, it's more of like a luxury, I would say. At some point, if I feel like I need a third totem, because you do get one additional max totem with cannons ready. So I just place 2 artillery ballistas. But if you want to place 3, then maybe this is good. So then, getting back to this, I was wanting to test just kind of its damage before and after. And this specifically is placing artillery ballista and then placing Dark Effigy right on top of me. So both of the ballistas, or both of the totems rather, are right next to my feet. The only change that occurred was the lead up points into the Ascendancy, granting totem damage, which is this change reflected here. The Dark Effigy did not increase the bleed for the totems. And in fact, the Dark Effigy itself, this 40% increased damage over time, strictly just mention, or it affects anything that talks about damage over time. So like with Essence Drain, I just grabbed like a level 3 Essence Drain. I did this before with nothing, like literally no support gems, and then after I placed it. So kind of disappointing that the damage over time doesn't work, although with how clear they're being in keywords and denoting things, I guess it makes sense that bleed isn't a damage over time. Technically, it's an ailment, so anything that scales an ailment would work. But I figured I would just want to try this to figure it out. So that leads me into kind of where I went with the build. I'm just looking at videos right now. Figure out where. So this is one where I was trying not Plasma Blast, but I was trying to do high velocity rounds into fragmentation rounds. Fragmentation rounds had just deep cuts too. It had physical damage, but a problem is even though I did have the support gem that consumed armor for 40% more damage because I was trying to scale the bleed, not so much like subsequent hits. But this video kind of showcases that fragmentation rounds isn't the best at just a one shot to apply the bleed. So that I shot frag rounds and it's like negligible as a bleed. So then I was looking into this. This was before I made changes to what was it? I think I had all Ascendancies at this point. I actually don't remember the timing for this, but I believe I have the 2. Okay, no, this was before Ascendancy. Okay, yeah. I wanted to do this Citadel before so I could see what it was like doing damage. So the damage is okay. Kind of showcase this boss. Oops. So I do step out of this war banner here. This is me being stupid. I'm literally not getting 25% more damage. But before the hit, it's like what? 365,000. I'll just say like 400. So from 400 to 500-ish, that was the hit. And look at this bleed after the fact. The only reason why this bleed is higher is because I'm using Siege Cascade. So trying to use Rislothas, and this is what was in this video that I was using, just felt like shit. I then went to what was this one? Yes. Okay. So this is after I did the Ascendancy. I have the more speed to the Plasma Blast, so it charges faster. I placed the 2 totems down. I do have this shrine on, but it doesn't do that much damage for me. So I'll just go it back a little bit. In that amount of time, I pinned the boss, so it's pretty fast. This is where I get to mark, and I did add a voltaic mark in here. I then charge up. So about 230. And I hit for, I think, about 330,000 in that hit. Which, this is the subsequent bleed following that hit. A lot better. So if I'm able to high roll on a hit, bleed is very good. And this voltaic mark actually allows me to get to 100% shock, but as soon as this mark falls off, it actually shaves off like 25% shock value, and it just remains to 75 from Plasma Blast. So overall, it's not bad. I did want to take this into a Xesht. Just clearing standard shit, you know, from previous videos, just using Siege Cascade. So here, I placed 2 totems down, which the embankments do not stack. You only get 1 of these buffs, but at least having 2 of these same totems, it helps build pin faster. So that's why I placed 2 for now. So pin the boss, broken armor. And before the hit's about 329. And the hit's 618, so almost 300k hit. Which, it's a respectable bleed. I was following up with armor piercing rounds, so it did add a little bit of damage into that. And this was even a bigger hit, if you saw that. I'll go back to that. Okay, it's built up, so it's 572. So that was almost, no, that was a 500,000 hit from Plasma Blast. And that's the bleed following that, so that was pretty good. Then I started to run into a problem. We'll show this King of the Mist first. I started to play around with the idea that, oh, you know, well, I can have one of these totems for pin buildup, and then I can have the other one for increased damage. And while it does hit the boss pretty frequently for like added damage, it's like nowhere even close to like Siege Cascade. And if you see, like in one hit or like one attack, that totem is now dead, and I lose all of that damage. And as I was trying to do this, this was before I swapped to armor piercing rounds, or I might have taken it off for this just to try. The damage is like poo-poo garbage because I'm not able to pin the boss super fast. I'm spending all this time just using Siege Cascade. And that's me firing because I thought I had pinned. So I eventually fell to my immediate demise, I think, with this one. Because I was just spending way too much fucking time fucking around. And then I wanted to do a T3 Xesht. So clearing was like kind of slow. I don't have high on the meter, but I was also playing around with removing projectile speed off the tree, which I still don't have that much anymore. And I guess I can go over that in a second, or a little bit. But then actually trying to hit Xesht. So this is with 2 of the artillery ballistas for pinning. I'm like pinning at a decent rate, I would say. So I got my setup. Fully charged. 734,000. That was like less than 200,000 for a hit. And this leads me into, I think, another problem with how I'm building this character is, or how I was kind of. So I'm at least building kind of frequently now. And that was about a 300,000 hit. But the bleed itself is still very small in comparison. And then I eventually fell to my immediate death because I'm too stupid. And I got hit by this shit. But I think I was trying to... So I had just pinned the boss, from what I remember. Yep. So then I'm trying to sit here and use Plasma Blast. I wasted like a second to roll. So I think I have like 2 seconds left on this pin. Oh no, I did it. I was able to pin. Okay. Oh no, it was this one. I'm building pins so fast I keep forgetting where I'm at. So I just built up pin. Maybe I'm tripping. I felt like I did not get a fully channeled off, Plasma Blast off. But you kind of get the gist. Not enough damage. I'm just wasting time. So I was looking into ways to try to get more damage. This is an Iron Citadel. But what do I have in here? I think when I referenced before changes, it was before some changes on the tree. Oh, my game constantly freezes, so it's also kind of sick. Decent bleed. But it was when I fight dog. So 227,000. Maybe it's like a 200,000 hit. I'm also shooting again, so it's adding to the damage. And then this one is hard to see, but I did end up taking a screenshot of this. So this hit that's about to happen is around 439,000, which this is going to make this boss bleed out to death. So, and where are we? I have way too many videos here. So this was testing a boss. I think I actually went to the boss like almost immediately. I labeled this one 425,000 hit. So that was over the course of like, I think 4 seconds. Let's see. One, two, three. It's about like 4 seconds. So 4 seconds to do about 3 million damage. Kind of sick. But again, it depends on how high of a roll I get with a hit. So then let me actually jump into my passive tree. So originally I was over here. I was getting an extra jewel socket. I had some of these nodes here. I had these nodes here. I eventually just walked back on taking these. And then I had like a couple damage nodes here. Because I felt like with the weapon swap, I was spreading my points out very thin when I didn't really need to. So for instance, I didn't have this, so deal bleed essentially faster. I didn't have this with Plasma Blast. And then also, I didn't have these nodes for either Siege Cascade or Plasma Blast. So just increased magnitude, increased duration, and then increased hit against enemies afflicted by an ailment, which they're always going to be bleeding. And then increased duration of ailments. So after taking points away from here, what I ended up doing is I put some points down to here. Because again, my focus is trying to kill bosses because I can kill anything in a map for the most part. I took these because this is a lot of damage, like 48% increased damage against rare or unique enemies, which I could use for both skills, right? Or all three, or fuck it, all of them. I ended up picking up Giant Slayer, so even more damage, increased chance to inflict ailments. So I put a Time Lost Ruby here, and I swapped out this for attack speed, crossbow damage, projectile speed, and I think another stat on a jewel. So this one makes its way break armor faster. I have a higher stun threshold, which is whatever. I have this magnitude of bleed for notables, and this increased effect of small passive skills. So I was using this on my Titan. I slotted it here because I'm still in this area. So I do get increased effect of these nodes and these nodes. Pretty sick. I swapped out another jewel. I put chance to inflict bleeding in bleed magnitude. This totem placement speed is actually kind of helpful because I can place it faster and get more into shooting. And then I was able to take a point away from here. I put more points into pin buildup instead of breaking armor. And then, what did I do? Oh, yes. So originally I was going up here to pick up this. Attack speed, immolation buildup, or immobilization buildup, sorry. And then I was going to go over here to get a third totem. I, however, think that I can build pin very quickly now because of this gem. So pin 2, modifiers to stun buildup instead apply to pin buildup. And using this, it feels really nice with 2 of these ballistas to get pin. But then I was actually going over here to pick up this cluster, which I believe is new. So you get attack damage, presence area of effect, attack damage, glory gen, attack damage. And then there's this guy. So consuming glory grants you 3% increased attack damage per glory consumed for 6 seconds. And with 100 glory, I believe I capped this like instantly. So 60% increased attack damage. I then was going to go actually into this cluster here because I don't have to path anywhere and try this out where I get increased glory generation. So 40%. I have increased aura magnitudes. So increased war banner effect, which means even more damage. And then I can pick up increased AoE, increased duration, and then increased resistances if I feel like it. I don't think I'll need this, but it takes right now currently about 12 seconds while hitting a boss in a map to get war banner from 0, which is kind of okay. And that's why I was wanting to go for this glory generation here, because otherwise I would have to go over here, which is a little bit out of the way. But this is also 20%. This cluster does give attack damage and glory generation, but nowhere near as much as the other one. And then I started to path up here for attribute requirements because I still need a little bit. Mostly for the decks right now for Voltaic Mark. Everything else I pretty much have covered. And then this quality of skills, I've mentioned it so many times in previous videos. This 5% does a lot for this build because it means with Siege Cascade, I do 100% increased damage against immobilized targets instead of just 80, which is really nice. With Plasma Blast, I get increased shock duration. Balista, I get more damage, acts as pinning, which is nice. More pin buildup. I break increased armor, which is whatever. Increased effective shock, but I'm already at 100, so it doesn't do much. Time of need, more life when this procs. War Banner, Reservation, who cares? And then Herald of Blood, which is more about like clearing. I think that's it for my little update. This is a pretty long video again, but I've tested a bunch of stuff. I think I'll make a video at some point once I feel like I can kill a tier 3 boss. Or like just keep going into Xesht and see if I can do something, because I feel like that's one of the more ultimate tests to see if this build is any good. I don't even know if you could do Arbiter. Maybe you can. My issue, along with single target damage, is staying alive. And I don't know how to stay alive with me trying to scale as much damage as possible. because I want armor, I want life, but a lot of those stats conflict, so I need to choose either or, not both. So I'm sitting at like 1800, and there are some builds out there that are like at 2500 because they're able to have like life on their gear. Technically, I could have life on my amulet. I could have life on my gloves, but you know, I'm using my gloves because of its damage, not so much for its life. Then obviously with my belt, I have literally no defensives on here. It's just pure damage. On this tree, I don't really know what to do about staying alive easier because I can pick up armor nodes. However, I still am not going to have a lot of base armor. I could get a better chest piece that has just T1, excuse me, T1 armor rolls on here to get like close to 3K. But still I'm lacking in the HP department. So that part of this build stinks. Maybe I can even reduce some points on this tree to pick up armor, because you can't pick up life anywhere besides gear. But yeah, I think that is it for the updates. Yep, I don't really have much else to say. I'm still going to do some testing, blast some bosses, and I'll make another video probably as like a final if I feel like I can get this build to kill a T1 boss or T3 boss fairly quickly. So thanks for watching. If you stuck around this long, appreciate it. Take care.